My presentation today is on William Chandler Bagley. On March 15, 1874, in Detroit, Michigan, William Chandler Bagley was born. From his biography written by I.L. Kendall and from credible research, there is essentially no information on what his childhood was like or how he grew up. The only mention of his parents were from his dedications from the books he wrote and the fact that they are from Massachusetts. However, there are records indicating that he attended public school during his elementary years in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Detroit, Michigan, for his high school years. This period of his education evidently held no influence for his future progress. He began his college years at Michigan Agricultural College, later named Michigan State College. After graduating in 1895, his expectation for obtaining a career he was striving for was an accomplishment he would never achieve. Instead, he accepted a job as a teacher in a small-town, one-teacher school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He became one of the most distinguished members of the teaching profession because he found the work of teaching in a backwoods, one-teacher school interesting and challenging, and was then inspired to look for thorough foundations on which to base education other than those that existed during that time. In the summer of 1896, Bagley entered the University of Chicago as a graduate student to study psychology and physiology in order to learn about the science of the mind to better apply it to his teachings. Because of financial reasons, he continued his studies the next summer at the University of Wisconsin, where in 1898 he graduated with his master's in experimental psychology. He was then appointed to Cornell University, where he further studied psychology and neurology. In 1900, he obtained the Ph.D. with a dissertation on the apperception of the spoken sentence, a study in the psychology of language, which was published in the American Journal of Psychology. He ended up staying at Cornell University through the summer and through the following semester to assist E.B. Techner in the psychological laboratory. The next semester, February 1901, he left to become the elementary principal of a school in St. Louis. Then in August, William Chandler Bagley marries Florence McLean Winger, a colleague from Cornell University. She was encouraging towards Bagley and had a sympathetic creativeness and helpfulness because she was a trained psychologist. She was described as a strong character with positive views and was known as being a strong influence on Bagley while she remained in the background of his work. Finding a place more suitable for him and his family, he transfers to State Normal College at Dillon, Montana, to serve as a director of the training school. Because of Bagley, the school increased in academics and became more successful and later renamed the school Bagley School. From 1903 to 1906, he served as a superintendent of the college in Dillon, Montana, and then in Oswego, New York. Throughout Bagley's career, he wrote many astonishing books and volumes on his theories, research, and educational processes. Two of his books ended up winning him a reputation that brought offers from 3 different universities for a position as a professor in 1908. He accepted the offer from the University of Illinois and became the director of the University School of Education, to which he was able to develop one of the leading institutions in the nation's Middle West. Bagley was also quite the example of leadership in educational positions. Through 1911 to 1912, he was the president of the National Society for the Study of Education. He was also one of the 4 founders of the Journal of Educational Psychology and served as one of its 4 editors until 1917. Again, he was the editor for School and Home Education from 1912 to 1921. More importantly, he became one of the leading advocators of an honor society at the University of Illinois, Kappa Delta Pi. The main purpose for this society was to promote the standards of scholarship and research in institutions for the preparation of teachers and to confer the honor of membership on those students who gave evidence of ability, character, scholarship, and professional promise. By 1914, it was clear that Bagley was an outstanding leader in education. August 31, 1917, Bagley resigned from his position at the University of Illinois and was granted a year's leave of absence by the Teachers College to continue his work in surveying the education in Missouri, which led to his new field of profession, educational surveys. He quickly became recognized as the main authority of this profession and was asked to participate in countless surveys. From 1930 to 1933, he was a member of the Board of Consultants for the National Survey of the Education of Teachers. During the beginning of Bagley's lifespan, America had been facing social, economic, and political changes that created an important influence on education. The increase in the country's population because of natural process and immigration allowed businesses, transportations, and communications to grow. However, this led to the growth of slums within cities and the exploitation of immigrants in the industry. This created demand for new adjustments and emphasis on the American education. Larger schools were built with expert systems of administration and transportation improvement. Talking about the influence of the pragmatism within the schools, the book states how the new philosophy changed the basic construction of the curriculum that was more experimental and revolutionary, represented a complete break with the traditional philosophies, and accordingly stood as a challenge to the philosophies of education, which had dominated American education. In 1919, the Progressive Education Association was founded, emphasizing the freedom that a child should have while learning and disagreed with the traditional practices of teaching. The association introduced the idea of flexibility within a curriculum and stressed the importance of students and the value of knowledge. With the onset of Depression, the philosophy included a new emphasis that changed the focus of children-centered to the community and society as a whole for the use of social reconstruction, concluding that this is where complications and content of education should flow. In the first half of the 20th century, attention strayed from the teachers of education and focused on the improvement of school buildings, philosophies, curriculum revision, tests, and measurements of knowledge. Most felt that too much effort and time was spent on the professional subjects and methods of teaching than on academic subjects, and the development of the mastery of that subject. Efforts in changing the organization of academics and professional subjects were generally disregarded by critics and by those responsible for the preparation of teachers. During this part in educational history, it is clear to see how someone who is a leader in educational advancement had to do their part, just like Bagley did. When progressive education and pragmatism grew and became popular within the school systems, Bagley became their biggest critic. He knew that progressivism was lacking in an understandable social objective and stressed the importance of the individual with his or her needs and immediate wants. He could see nothing but chaos and confusion in the progressive attitude to the curriculum. He was skeptical about any method that was proclaimed as the only method that a teacher could employ successfully. Above all, he feared the effects on society of what he regarded as an element of weakness rather than of strength. From 1914 to 1929, he fought for what he believed to advance education and progress of Americans, meaning he opposed vocational education in the junior high school, stood up for scholarships in teacher training institutions, challenged the intelligence testing, criticized scientific curriculum, and demanded ethical impression. Bagley denied that he was an idealist, traditionalist, or a conservative. He further proposed the term stalwart to describe his beliefs against progressivism. He explained that a stalwart makes a well-ordered, methodical process the central aspect of his or her program of teaching. In contrast, the progressives seized their programs of teaching with avoidance. This is where the author of our main source coined the term stalwart educator in his title. However, Bagley was eventually titled as an essentialist. Being one of the founding fathers of this educational theory, Bagley later led the essentialist movement in 1938. Their position included stating the purpose of education by defining the role of schools in strictly academic terms and expectations, identifying the deficiencies that were allegedly consequences of failing to follow a basic education orientation, and calling for a remedy to restore schools to their proper role and function. Their goal for education is to spread and preserve elements within their human culture. Essentialists blame progressivism and some other educational theories for weakening discipline within the schools and ignoring the importance of the academic standards. They believe that the problems of American education could be solved by teaching the essentials and avoiding diversion, teaching skills and subject chronologically, asserting high standards of educational achievement, and emphasizing the discipline and hard work that are required for learning. William Bagley's career was a strong motivator for his belief in the social aim and responsibility in education. From the progressive and pragmatic movement, he noticed and was disturbed by the increasing growth in self-centeredness and individualism. And these tendencies, he knew, would be the root of weaknesses of education in America, both morally and intellectually. Bagley was completely against the use of intelligence testing to measure the knowledge of students and proved how such tests did not measure intelligence. They only provided a negative influence on the environment and schooling on the individual. He soon realized that one of the biggest weaknesses in our education was the number of undeveloped, unprofessional teachers within our educational system. He knew that the key to education is a well-prepared teacher, and that no curriculum format or amount of subject matter can make up the effects of a poor teacher. He proposed that the only way to correct his serious situation was to replace these weak elements with stronger ones. One of the main reasons why Bagley had such a strong emphasis on the teachers of education was because his very own teachers were his main influences and models for what a teacher should aspire to be. From his 9th grade teacher and principal, William H. Bartlett, he understood that a teacher needs a well-controlled voice. One of his instructors in chemistry at Michigan Agricultural College, Roscoe C. Kedzie, was described as a knowledgeable teacher and scholar. He lectured in a clear, organized manner and had a sense of humor, which Bagley seen as an important characteristic in a good teacher. His professor of English, Howard Edwards, expressed how one can teach with an element of adventure and artistry in one's assignments, and thus making the students witness what is being taught with curiosity and attentiveness. He was described as a curious, kindly, sympathetic man with an unshaken reliability and patience. He was one of the teachers, including Kedzie, who inspired Bagley with what qualities make up an ideal teacher. William Torrey Harris, however, may have been one of the most important influences for Bagley. Harris developed the school system in St. Louis where Bagley had worked for. The dynamic value of an elaborately comprehended and strictly shaped system of fundamental principles impressed Bagley. It was this influence that began Bagley's own educational theories. On July 1, 1946, William Chandler Bagley passed away while completing the Carnegie Corporation's Journal in New York, a job he accepted after he reached the age of retirement. Bagley will always be remembered as a passionate educator who fought for what he believed was best for America's education and a great supporter of academic disciplines. With the lasting impression of his leadership positions and authorities, the founder of the essentialist educational theory shall be remembered throughout Americans' educational history.